Hello and welcome to Inside Tennessee Football's practice facility. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor, and we are with VARreport.com on the Rivals Network as Tennessee continues its preparation for a big trip to Athens to play Georgia. We met with two assistant coaches, running backs coach Darrell Sims, defense coordinator Tim Banks, and then two players as well. Let's jump right into it with coaches. Noah, what did you think?
Yeah, Tim Banks, I think this defense, and we talked about it yesterday, we talked about it Saturday night after the game, this defense has been so dominant. There's not a lot you can kind of nitpick at, but there is something the last couple of weeks has been kind of their struggles in stopping the run. It obviously was something that kept Kentucky in the game a couple weeks ago. It's something that kept Mississippi State in the game when even though Tennessee won that game by multiple scores, won both games by multiple scores, there were times in that game where it kind of felt like it was a little bit closer than maybe it should have been because the Kentucky's ability to stay on the field, Mississippi State's ability to stay on the field because of the run. And, Tim Banks, it didn't really seem like it was something he was too concerned about right now. Asked about it a couple different times today, and his answer was kind of every game's different for us, every rep is different for us. It's something that they're going to continue to work on, but it didn't come across like it's something they think is going to become a trend for this team, and really its most critical stretch coming up, and coming up against a Georgia team that's not passing the ball well right now, and will probably lean heavily on the run and has two talented running backs to go up against. But I think if you're a Tennessee fan and you're worried about that the last couple of weeks, it just came across from Tim Banks today that it's not something that they're too terribly concerned about continuing going forward.
No, that's what that kind of plague has been on offense, on defense. On offense, it's been just not taking advantage of opportunities, and a big reason for that is turnovers.
Yeah.
In the last 3 games, it's been Dylan Sampson fumbling the ball. So Darrell Sims, the running backs coach, was asked about that exact situation. Dylan Sampson, obviously, a guy who hasn't been known for fumbles in his career. That hasn't. I think his first fumble in his career was the one a few weeks ago to start that trend. So, kind of, what is that situation? What's going wrong there? And Darrell talked about how you want to fight for those extra yards. You want to keep your feet moving and continue to go downfield, and that does have a lot of benefits. But sometimes you kind of need to understand when it's time to just hit the deck and to get down and go on to the next play. And that does seem like a balance that's really tough to find, because you don't want to leave even 1 yard on the table when you're trying to move the ball down the field with an offense that has struggled at times this year. But at the same time, those turnovers have killed Tennessee. They've all been in plus territory.
Yeah.
They've all been when it looks like that offense is starting to roll and starting to have an opportunity to find the end zone, or at least give Max Gilbert a good try for a kick. And it's bit them, and it's been part of the reason they've struggled in the first half. So for Dylan Sampson, we'll see what that looks like. I'm sure Georgia has noticed that trend and will try to take advantage of it, but I think you have to have a lot of faith in Dylan Sampson to take care of the ball and be that workhorse he's been all season. But he was one of the guys we talked to today, along with cornerback Jermod McCoy. What are your thoughts on what they had to say?
Yeah, kind of bouncing off what you're talking about with the fumbles. I think that's one reason we've seen Peyton Lewis kind of get some carries here in some pretty critical stretches of games. You go back to the Kentucky game with the fumble. Peyton Lewis comes back out there for Tennessee's next offensive possession, and I believe it was on that one that they drive down and score. At least it was early in that first half. He gets a chance, an opportunity. A guy that's dealt with some injuries back in the spring, was kind of limited in fall camp as well. But now he's taking advantage of some reps with Deshaun Bishop. His status uncertain right now. So, and Cam Seldon's another guy too that we got to see a lot more of, I think, against Mississippi State. But yeah, those fumbles from Dylan Sampson kind of gave, I think, Josh Heupel or gave really Peyton Lewis a chance to get out there and see what he could do, and I think he's taken advantage of that. Had a really solid game against Kentucky, had some solid runs Saturday night against Mississippi State, and I think that's good to see. You're kind of building up a guy who's going to be here. He's only a freshman, so he's got some time to really grow, and you've got to imagine this will be it for Dylan Sampson with the year that he's having as a junior now, being draft eligible. But you're kind of getting a sign of maybe what this guy could bring you next year. And he's definitely worked his way up into that number 2 spot. We don't know what it'll look like by the end of the year if Deshaun Bishop comes back, what Cam Seldon's health will be like at the end of the year. He's dealt with some things too, but I would say Peyton Lewis has done a really good job of kind of making his case now that he's healthy for that number 2 spot.
I mean, it's you're going into your 10th game of the season, so no one's really healthy right now, of course. Like, everyone's banged up, but of those 4 running backs that have seen time, Peyton Lewis he's pretty fresh. I mean, you think Dylan Sampson with the insane workload he's had this year, and then also he's obviously injured enough to exit the game last Saturday. He ends up coming back, but he's been banged up throughout this season. Cam Seldon with the shoulder issue, that's held him out. That's been limiting what he's been able to do. And now Deshaun Bishop who's out and missed last game. And as you said, we'll have to wait for that injury report on Wednesday. But I'm not too optimistic, I guess, at this point in time that he'll be good to go. But we'll have to see exactly what that looks like. But Peyton Lewis, he's pretty fresh compared to those guys, especially considering he didn't play much at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of games where he was playing special teams and he was getting down the field on those kickoff units and things like that, but he wasn't getting that workload as a running back where you're getting hit on every play, whether it's in pass protection or running the ball or running a route or whatever it is. So, maybe that will be something that'll be to Tennessee's advantage, but it'll also be a big test, really his first big road game that he'll play in what an environment for that to happen in. But Jermod McCoy kind of talked about that exact situation as well. He's a guy that first year in the SEC, similar to Peyton Lewis. He played at Oregon State, so that's Power 4 football, like you're playing. Or I guess Power 5 back then. But you're playing decent teams. You're playing in decent environments over there in the Pac-12 last year. But it's different in the SEC. So how do you manage going and playing in a big game like that? And it's not his first. Obviously, he had a big game against Alabama and Ryan Williams. But he talked about how he was pretty candid, I thought, which you don't always hear that from players, where a lot of them say, yeah, same thing. He was like, of course some games are going to be bigger than others.
Yeah.
When you're going on the road to play Georgia in what could be a big difference in your season, depending on the outcome of that game and what your postseason looks like, that is a big game. And he didn't shy away from that, but he did say, you want to keep the preparation the same, you want to stay mentally in the same place, and that's kind of been his mentality all season. And now that he's got a few under his belt, that he's pretty comfortable, I feel like, in this spot. So he'll have his hands full against this Georgia offense that's been struggling. Carson Beck not having the best stretch, and he even hinted like they do a lot of stuff really well. It's a good unit. He's not trying to take anything away from that, but he was like, we do see some things on film that if Tennessee does their part, they feel like they can take advantage of it and ultimately have that be a good outcome for that defense and Jermod McCoy. But big challenge for him. We'll see how he responds, but he's lived up to expectations and honestly even higher so far in his short time here at Tennessee. But that'll do it all from us here, though, today inside the practice facility. Make sure you head over to VolReport.com for full coverage on Tennessee going up to face Athens this weekend. We'll also have tomorrow an opponent preview with Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com, Georgia site on the Rivals Network. Really informative stuff from him to kind of help preview that game. And obviously men's basketball, women's basketball seasons are officially underway and getting going. So make sure you head over to VolReport.com for everything you need Tennessee athletics. Links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.